expert pilot friend, DJ Frost, who's type-rated and everything from the Graf Zeppelin on up. And Captain Frost, what do you make of the fact that they've now announced that the first Airbus was intact when it hit the ocean, and the second one was apparently trying to land? Is there a design defect in the A300s?
Well, good morning, G-Man. Thank you for having me back again. I think that people need to know that there's to differentiate between these two Airbuses. The one that just crashed, the Yemen one, is actually an A310. This is an older model. This came right after the A300. This is the A310, so this is like their second generation Airbus compared to the 330, which is one of the latest ones that crashed. The Air France one now, that press conference really had me scratching my head. All of a sudden that they could come out with this kind of speculation that this airplane came down, straight down, landing on its belly with everything intact. I don't know. I'm having some suspicions now what exactly is going on with the investigation and whether this is really an independent investigation conducting this. Because for the airplane to be losing control, then I'm wondering if that whole vertical fin did not separate in flight. They're saying it didn't, yet for an airplane to completely lose control and possibly go into a flat spin, it would just have to make sense that part of the airplane would separate. So I'm just wondering, Airbus is French, and it's an Air France flight. I don't know. It's really starting to raise more questions than answer at this point.
Well, they've announced that a French submarine has apparently located the signals from the black boxes of this most recent crash off Yemen, yes. But that won't help us with the other one.
No. Now, the one in Yemen, I believe, is either a wind shear situation, and I think it's important for people to understand flying on third world airlines that they might not have the equipment that we're used to, that are standard with FAA approval within the United States for wind shear detection and for wind shear training. We all go through the simulator each year, and we get specific wind shear training on avoidance, on detection, on evasion for getting out of a situation. Now, that being said, if that airline did not comply with that, which every airline, every country has their own governing rules on how they're conducting their aviation inspections and their training with each airline. Now, I know there's a standard universal ICAO rules, and that's why they were getting in some trouble within the European Union, that some of that airplane in particular was going to be put on a watch list or was being watched, and they weren't even bringing that up into Europe at that point. So there's a lot of interesting things there, too, and I'm almost wondering, too, they had already done an approach and a go-around that it might have even been a fuel exhaustion situation. I mean, we had Avianca up in New York several years ago where that occurred. So there's a lot of possibilities right there.
Well, now, aren't they supposed to have 40 minutes worth of fuel so that you can divert?
Absolutely. That's standard also all over the world. At that point, they had already done one approach. The winds that were being reported at that altitude where they were on the approach were about 70 miles per hour, and my goodness, isn't that almost a hurricane-force wind? Yeah. I'm just wondering why they were even attempting an approach at that point in those kind of fierce winds, and they already did a missed approach and aborted landing. So I'm almost wondering why didn't they then proceed right to their alternate? Why were they starting another approach? That just kind of raises a flag within myself saying, wow, maybe they didn't have enough fuel to get to their alternate at that point. So I'm hoping that they find that airplane, they can get down there, check those boxes, and really check those fuel levels and check those instruments for what kind of real winds were they feeling at that point and whether it was wind shear.
Yeah, Captain Frost, getting back to the original one from Brazil, if it went into a flat spin from 35,000 feet and then hit the ocean, that would be like hitting concrete.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's what they were saying. They'd looked at the compression of several of the pieces of the airplane. I guess they had some galley parts, the crew rest area where it was compressed like that, and I guess that's why they're coming up with that conclusion at this point.
Well, while this is happening, you don't go from 35,000 feet down to zero in a matter of seconds. I mean, things were going on. What would you think was happening? Because the crew should have been able to take over control of that thing and take it out of a flat spin, so long as major components of the aircraft were not missing.
Exactly, G-Man. And that's why I'm suspecting that vertical stabilizer was missing, and they lost control, similar to the one that crashed in Rockaway, the American Airlines Airbus. They lost their whole rudder there, and they were out of control. And they had a very low altitude, and they had no time to even prepare to even take that off to another runway or possibly land in a safer place. That's what I don't understand, then. It's either they had no, if they lost their engine thrust, if the engines flamed out, they would have had time to even attempt another start in the air or even get into a glide pattern with that. And I don't know if anybody's ever flown gliders. You could still glide that airplane and still have some time, get down to a minimum glide speed for distance, and start preparing for either a ditching or start running checklists in order to do a relight, at least on one of those engines. So just to speculate then, okay, the plane is intact and it spun down and it crashed in the ocean, I think they're just trying to come up with something now without really having enough facts at this point. And I just don't think that's right. I think they just need to get more facts before they even start speculating on something like that.
What did we learn from the bodies that were recovered? Was there water in the lungs that would indicate drowning, or did they die upon impact and thus not ingest water? Do we know anything?
The only thing that I have heard specifically so far is that nobody had their life jackets on, of course, because they didn't know what was going on at that point. And what is interesting at this point too, and I don't understand, is Brazil is not releasing those autopsy reports at this point. And that's very curious also. So there's a lot of things going on. It's like, who exactly is leading this investigation, and is it actually being done independently of any influence, specifically from Airbus or from Air France? And what is the reason that they are keeping these things so secret and not releasing more of the facts instead of more of the speculation?
Well, Captain Frost, who actually was operating the airline at that time? Was it Air France or was it Brazil? The reason I asked that is I've got a scheduled flight in a couple of weeks, domestic here in the United States, and it says U.S. Airways being operated by United Airlines.
Yeah, that's a very good point, G-Man. At that point, it was Air France. Now, people who might have been flying on that Yemen airline, I'm not sure what their code-share agreements are, and when people travel, especially traveling overseas, they really need to be more diligent in finding out exactly what airline they are going on, because you're exactly right. You could show up to the gate and thinking you are on a specific airline, a major airline, and see it is another, it is somebody else there that's doing a code share agreement. Sure, that's a very good point.
All right. Well, Captain Frost, thank you very much for giving us your thoughts on this. And as more information comes out, I hope we can feel free to call upon you again.
Absolutely, G-Man, and I have a great blog for safety and fear flying. It's pilotdjfrost.com, and people can contact me if they have any questions. I address questions on the blog because I know a lot of people are feeling stressed, feeling fearful about flying this summer, and I attempt to answer as many questions and really give some good information at pilotdjfrost.com. So thank you so much.